A cracked photograph, edges singed by time. A group of young women in grease-stained overalls, faces smudged, smiles defiant beneath the harsh glare of a Pacific sun. Behind them, a battered M4 Sherman tank, its engine exposed like a patient on an operating table. The date scribbled on the back, 1943, barely conceals the irony. These women, dubbed mechanics, were targets of sneers and ridicule by enemy radio broadcasts. Japanese propaganda mocked American women who dared to wield wrenches instead of rifles, belittling their presence as a desperate sign of weakening morale. Yet intercepted communications reveal a different story. Garbled fragments hint at confusion, frustration, even fear. How could these women, underestimated by both friend and foe, dismantle and repair complex armored vehicles faster than their male counterparts? What was the secret behind this paradox that the enemy refused to acknowledge? And why did American command overlook what was happening in their own workshops? The origins of this unexpected phenomenon trace back to the desperate hours following the attack on Pearl Harbor. As the war pulled men to the front lines, the U.S. military reluctantly conscripted women into roles traditionally reserved for men. Among them, mechanics tasked with keeping tanks battle-ready. Initial resistance was palpable. A rusted toolkit, recovered from a decommissioned depot, bears the faded stamp of a female mechanics unit, her name erased, replaced by a sardonic note from a squadron commander: "She'll never hold a wrench like a man." But necessity forged a new reality. The influx of women into maintenance bays coincided with an urgent need to expedite repairs. Downtime meant death on the battlefield. Military archives hint at tensions within the ranks. Some officers doubted the women's capabilities, while others quietly documented their rising proficiency. How did these women overcome entrenched skepticism? What hidden training methods, or unrecorded innovations, did they employ to outpace seasoned male mechanics? Technical blueprints from the era reveal the complexity of the M4 Sherman's powertrain, an intricate assembly of engines, transmissions, and suspensions designed for rugged versatility, but prone to mechanical failures under strain. The standard repair protocol, developed by male-dominated engineering teams, assumed an average repair time that left repair bays clogged and frontline units waiting. However, the women's units adapted quickly, developing streamlined procedures that shaved hours off the maintenance cycle. Photographs from inside repair workshops show women synchronizing with precision, wielding calibrated tools with surprising finesse, their hands steady despite the stifling heat and choking fumes of oil and gasoline. Their approach was methodical, almost surgical. Yet official reports remained silent on the techniques that allowed these untrained mechanics to surpass expectations. What innovations were deliberately obscured? Why did military leadership hesitate to publicize these successes, even as they saved countless lives? The first documented test of this phenomenon occurred in late 1943, when a tank battalion arriving in the Pacific Theater faced critical delays due to engine failures. The unit was paired with an all-women mechanic team, a move met with skepticism from both higher command and Allied forces. Radio logs from the day crackle with surprise as the women's team reportedly restored 3 Sherman tanks to combat readiness in under 6 hours, half the estimated time. A foggy black and white film clip captures the tense atmosphere, smoke swirling over the repair yard, the clatter of tools, and the steady rhythm of orders shouted in the background. Soldiers, initially dismissive, watched in disbelief as the women worked. Yet official war diaries barely mention the event, glossing over it as a routine operation. How did this success escape broader recognition? Was there a deliberate effort to downplay the role of women in this critical turning point? What were the implications for morale and military efficiency? Japanese intelligence initially amused by reports of American women mechanics, soon shifted its tone as battlefield reports indicated increased American tank readiness. Intercepts reveal a change in enemy broadcasts, from mockery to grudging respect, accompanied by tactical advisories warning of faster repair cycles. At Mitsubishi factories, engineers debated revisions to tank armor and engine designs, suspecting the enemy was accelerating repairs beyond anticipated limits. A faded map recovered from a Japanese command post highlights critical supply routes targeted to disrupt repair operations, underscoring the strategic threat posed by these female mechanics. Yet, countermeasures focused primarily on tank design and battlefield engagement, neglecting the human element driving these repairs. Why did Japanese command fail to fully grasp the scope of this shift? What was obscured beneath the surface of their tactical adaptations? How did this oversight shape the course of the Pacific War? By mid-1944, the impact of women mechanics had reached a tipping point. A confidential protocol, marked top secret, outlines an emergency resource allocation to female maintenance units, increasing tool shipments and spare parts. The map attached to the document charts the Pacific Islands, pinpointing repair depots where women's teams had become essential. The crisis was clear. Without rapid tank turnaround, American offensives risked stalling. Yet, despite proven effectiveness, official narratives continued to minimize these units' contributions. Radio intercepts from Japanese intelligence hint at growing paranoia. Reports of unseen forces behind swift tank repairs fueled fears and superstitions. What internal conflicts plagued American command as they balanced tradition and necessity? Why did the military hesitate to fully endorse women's mechanized roles, even as the battlefield demanded it? What hidden dynamics defined this turning point in the war? Each episode is a document I pull from the dust of the archives. Share your own stories. Many of you have relatives who lived through that time, and your words help connect personal memory with archival evidence. Stay curious. Subscribe so you don't miss the next episode tomorrow. As the war pressed deeper into the Pacific jungles, the pace of tank deployment accelerated beyond all prior projections. Behind the front lines, women mechanics operated in near-permanent shift rotations, their hands moving over engine blocks with a practiced efficiency born of relentless necessity. A faded ledger from a forward repair depot lists repair times for dozens of Sherman tanks, most completed within a 10-hour window, some as fast as 6, figures that outpaced male crews by nearly 30%, according to internal assessments. The smell of burnt oil and gasoline hung thick in the humid air, blending with the sharper tang of sweat and metal dust. Yet these metrics were buried deep within unit reports, overshadowed by broader operational narratives. The women's work was not without its critics. A dated memo from a battalion commander cautions against over-reliance on female mechanics, citing psychological stress and physical limitations as potential risks. But subsequent correspondence reveals a grudging acknowledgement. Their speed and accuracy have saved multiple operations from collapse. Photographs from the time show these women, faces streaked with grime, eyes focused, smiles rare but fierce, assembling engines amidst the chaos of war. One image, partially obscured by a torn corner, hints at a clandestine camaraderie. A male engineer discreetly handing a wrench to a young woman, their brief exchange charged with unspoken respect. How did this fragile alliance shape the dynamics of the maintenance crews? Why did official records remain so reluctant to capture these moments of unity? Meanwhile, the enemy's derogatory broadcasts grew increasingly desperate. Radio intercepts, now partially restored, reveal a shift from mockery to veiled threats. References to the wrench-wielding women who sabotage our plans. Behind these words lay a strategic concern. Japanese forces struggled to counteract the rapid repair cycles that kept American tanks in the fight. Intelligence reports describe hastily issued directives to target repair depots, emphasizing disruption of supply lines and sabotage attempts. An intercepted Japanese field manual, annotated in the margins with hastily scrawled warnings, stresses the vulnerability of enemy maintenance units. But the human element, the women at the heart of these operations, remained largely invisible to enemy eyes. How could such a pivotal force remain so obscured? What deeper biases blinded both sides to the true significance of these mechanics? In quieter moments, the women's workshops became sanctuaries of resilience. A worn diary, its pages yellowed and brittle, belonged to one female mechanic stationed on Leyte Island. She wrote of exhaustion and loss, but also of triumph, each repaired tank a testament to survival. The diary's final entry, dated October 1944, hints at a growing awareness of their own impact. They laugh at us still, but the tanks don't wait. We keep them moving, faster than any man. This personal testament contrasts sharply with the official silence. Why was this crucial human story so carefully muted? What did it reveal about gender, war, and the unspoken sacrifices behind every armored assault? In the months that followed Leyte, American command quietly expanded the deployment of female mechanic units, embedding them deeper into frontline logistics hubs. An internal directive, stamped confidential, outlines a sudden increase in recruitment quotas for women with mechanical aptitude. Yet the language remains coded, avoiding direct reference to gender. A grainy photograph taken in a dimly lit hangar captures a scene rarely shown. Women mechanics working side by side with male soldiers, their uniforms indistinguishable, save for the grease-stained hands and determined gazes. The air is thick with the clang of metal on metal, punctuated by the distant rumble of artillery. Yet, despite their proven efficiency, these women remained sidelined from official commendations and public recognition. What forces within the military hierarchy suppressed acknowledgement of their contributions? Was this a matter of preserving traditional gender roles, or a more calculated effort to control wartime narratives? The enemy's tactical response evolved in parallel. Japanese field reports, intercepted and partially decrypted, describe attempts to exploit perceived weaknesses in the maintenance chain, focusing attacks on supply convoys and repair facilities rather than the tanks themselves. A damaged map recovered from a downed reconnaissance plane shows marked targets along routes servicing American tank units, suggesting an intelligence effort to identify and disrupt these female-led repair teams. Yet, despite these focused strikes, repair turnaround times remained consistently high. A series of decrypted messages express growing frustration. The enemy's tanks return to battle faster than expected. Maintenance crews are adapting beyond our forecasts. How did these women maintain such resilience under constant threat? What unseen networks of support and innovation sustained their rapid repairs? A technical bulletin from mid-1945 reveals subtle but critical changes in maintenance protocols, adaptations credited to field experience rather than formal engineering revisions. Close examination of the document, however, shows handwriting corrections attributed to female supervisors, indicating a shift in operational knowledge from top-down orders to grassroots innovation. Photographs from the period depict women poring over engine schematics by flashlight, often working late into the night, their faces illuminated by the glow of oil lamps. This quiet ingenuity often went unrecorded in official logs, hidden beneath layers of bureaucratic omission. How many such innovations were lost to history? What does this silence tell us about whose stories are preserved in war archives and whose are erased? The psychological toll on these women was immense. A surviving radio transcript captures a terse exchange between a squadron commander and a female mechanic reporting a near-catastrophic engine failure. Her voice, steady despite fatigue, conceals the weight of responsibility, her work literally determining life or death on the battlefield. Yet, even as they carried this burden, the women faced persistent skepticism from some male colleagues, a tension palpable in candid photographs showing guarded expressions and hesitant glances. What mechanisms allowed these women to persist in such a hostile environment? How did they navigate the intersection of gender bias and wartime urgency, transforming ridicule into respect, if only in the shadows? As the Pacific Campaign neared its final stages, the role of female mechanics had become indispensable. An encrypted communication intercepted from Japanese command laments the unseen enemy within the American ranks, a veiled reference to the relentless repair efforts that undermined Japanese tactical advantages. Yet, despite their critical impact, post-war evaluations barely mention these women, consigning them to footnotes or erasing them entirely. What forces shaped this erasure? How did the legacy of these women mechanics challenge the prevailing narratives of wartime heroism and sacrifice? And what truths remain buried beneath layers of silence and forgotten documents? The final months of 1945 saw an intensification of efforts to sustain tank operations amid dwindling resources and mounting casualties. Within this crucible, women mechanics emerged as a crucial backbone of the maintenance network. A series of classified supply manifests detail prioritized shipments of spare parts and specialized tools directly to female-led repair teams on Okinawa and Iwo Jima, locations known for their brutal combat conditions. The manifest's margin bears a terse annotation, critical for operational continuity. A black and white photograph from Okinawa shows a woman crouched beside a Sherman's exposed engine, her face streaked with grime and determination, the distant sound of artillery echoing through the humid air. Despite exhaustion, the repair pace never faltered. How did these women sustain such relentless output under constant bombardment? What untold sacrifices underpinned this mechanical resilience? Field communications from the period reveal a hidden network of informal knowledge exchange. Letters between female mechanics, smuggled between depots, discuss troubleshooting techniques and improvisations born of necessity, replacing parts with scavenged components, adapting tools for unorthodox repairs. One letter, partially damaged but legible, describes a breakthrough in engine cooling systems that cut repair time dramatically. These grassroots innovations spread rapidly, outpacing official manuals and protocols. Yet, military reports routinely credited such improvements to generic maintenance teams, erasing the gendered reality of their origin. What does this systematic invisibility say about wartime record-keeping? Why was the true source of innovation cloaked in anonymity? Japanese intelligence continued to document the phenomenon with increasing alarm. A decrypted strategic assessment warns of enemy repair units operating with unprecedented speed and efficiency, noting that disrupting frontline tank readiness had become a losing battle. Tactical diagrams from this period highlight repeated failed attempts to isolate and strike repair facilities, underscoring the operational challenges posed by the women's teams. Yet, enemy propaganda remained fixated on outdated stereotypes, mocking American housewives playing soldier. How did such cognitive dissonance affect Japanese strategic decisions? Could recognition of these women's contributions have altered the course of engagements in the Pacific? The psychological burden on the women is illuminated by a rare audio diary recorded by a female mechanic stationed in the Philippines. Her voice, steady but weary, recounts long hours, loss of comrades, and the relentless pressure to keep tanks battle-ready for the next assault. She speaks of the invisible battlefield behind the front lines, a war fought not with bullets, but with grease and determination. The diary ends on a somber note. We are the last line before the fight begins. If we fail, they don't stand a chance. This raw testimony contrasts sharply with sanitized official histories that omit such personal accounts. Why have these voices been marginalized? What does their absence reveal about the gendered dimensions of wartime memory? As victory approached, the paradox remained. Women mechanics laughed at by the enemy, underestimated by their own command, yet indispensable to the final push. A confidential after-action report lists repair success rates and operational readiness figures, attributing remarkable performance to maintenance units without specifying gender. A stark, final image captures a group of women standing beneath a tank turret, eyes fixed on the horizon, the weight of unsung service etched into their expressions. What does this silence and recognition reveal about the broader societal reluctance to confront gender roles in war? How many more stories like theirs remain hidden, waiting to be uncovered in the shadows of history? In the immediate aftermath of the war, official commendations and military honors flowed predominantly to combat soldiers and commanding officers. Yet, tucked away in the archives, sparse citations acknowledge the tireless work of maintenance units, barely hinting at the female crews who had redefined the very mechanics of warfare. A brittle metal certificate, unsigned and undated, bears a faint inscription: for exceptional service in armored vehicle maintenance. The absence of a recipient's name speaks volumes about the era's discomfort with celebrating women in such roles. Photographs from post-war reunions show these women, older now, their faces a mix of pride and lingering invisibility, gathered quietly, sharing memories that the history books left unspoken. How did this erasure shape their post-war lives? What burdens did they carry, bearing the weight of unsung sacrifice? Decades later, historians piecing together these fragments confront a tapestry woven with omissions and contradictions. Declassified documents, combined with oral testimonies, reveal a complex narrative, one where gender biases obscured undeniable competence and where survival depended on subverting expectations. A recently uncovered film reel shows women mechanics working with fierce concentration, their movements precise, their laughter rare but genuine, as if daring the world to recognize their worth. The paradox remains: mocked by enemies, doubted by allies, yet pivotal in turning the tide. What lessons lie dormant in this story? How does acknowledging these hidden figures reshape our understanding of war, resilience, and the human spirit?